Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Let me just make sure that we got everything in order. Yes, we do. We have the correct audio. It's a little bit of an early live stream, but it's an emergency live stream, and it's a very important live stream, probably the most important live stream that we've done on this channel since the 2022 midterms, because Donald Trump, former president and possibly future president Donald Trump, the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president of the United States of America, has been indicted. He has not been arrested yet, but he has been indicted. They're expecting an arraignment next week, which would imply that there is some sort of arrest process going on. And we know what this is about for those that have been paying attention. We know what's going on. We're going to cover this in this live stream. We're going to be talking a little bit about Tennessee as well, the tragedy that took place there earlier this week, which apparently has just seemingly fallen out of the news cycle given the recent developments. Also, we have to touch base on the response to this from the Republican establishment, also in particular Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who said he is not going to be cooperating with Bragg. And we'll discuss his statement as well, the pros and cons of what he had to say. And we'll touch base on whatever you guys have to say in Super Chat. So make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any future streams. But Donald Trump potentially being arrested very soon. We've heard this before, but he officially has been indicted. For a while, it seemed as if there was no case. It seems as if it would not actually even come to an indictment. But the indictment has actually taken place. It's been official. This is today. This is March 30th. It's been talked about going back since I think March 16th, March 17th was when the news broke that they were pursuing this case in the Southern District of New York. And we've heard about Trump. They've tried to get Trump for years. They tried to get him ever since he came down the golden escalator back in 2015. They tried to get him for statements he made about women 20 years ago. They tried to get him on all these things. And then they started to introduce the more criminal charges once he actually got elected. Obviously, you had things like the Trump University cases, which he settled. You had, beyond that point, you had the whole Russia hoax. It was a hoax. The entire first half of his presidency, actually a little bit longer than the first half of his presidency, which was actually paid for by a dossier by the Clinton campaign in a case where there's no indictment for. And that kind of does tie into this. You talk about money that's being paid privately that's meant to be for campaign purposes. That's what Trump is allegedly under fire for here. He's under fire for paying money to essentially a prostitute, basically, to be quiet. And there's no evidence of this affair. The hush money seems like it may have been in play, but there's multiple reasons why that could be. It's not always going to be for campaign purposes. It could be to squash it from entering the mainstream, could be to save a marriage, could be to protect somebody's reputation from an obvious lie. So Trump has all these billions of dollars. Some crazy woman's going to go out there and say that some affair took place, and then Trump pays her off so it doesn't happen. Okay, whatever. Who knows? It's irrelevant if it happened or not. Many people believe that it did actually, whether it happened or not. But what really is the bottom line here is that it's not a legal matter. It's more of a civil matter than a criminal matter. And to already open up a case that's basically been closed to try and trip up the front runner for the Republican nomination in the legal system in a political gamble that may either help him a lot or hurt him a lot. They're trying to hurt him a lot, but for all we know, it could backfire and help him a lot in the primary and possibly be a net zero or even a net positive for Trump in the general election as well. It proves that there is a clear political agenda by a lot of these district attorneys, and they're going out there and they're using the power of the American justice system against their political opponents, the same way that they criticize people like Xi Jinping for doing in China or Putin doing in Russia or any of these governments around the world that are seen as unfriendly to Americans. They're doing the same exact thing here at home against American patriots and weaponizing the justice system against them. And it's not even going to stop at Donald Trump. It's not. Trump is going to be just fine, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there. Donald Trump is not going anywhere. He may be arrested. It's going to be an optics boost for him. It's going to make him look badass on the campaign trail ahead of his presidential bid. Look, I'm the biggest threat to the system again. The Republicans are trying to stop me again. The Democrats are trying to stop me again. The justice system is against me. The media is against me more now than ever because they want to keep this, senile lunatic in the White House so he can essentially cause World War III. And if that's going to be his message, which it seems like that has been his message in terms of his reaction to this news, then that is something that I do see as a net positive to his campaign in the long run. Obviously, this is a misuse of the justice system, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like, oh, the walls are closing in. It's so over. This is the worst day ever. I think Donald Trump wants to get arrested. I think he wants to get arrested. He'll be acquitted, whatever, because it's an optics boost for him. It really is. It drives up the energy in the base. Remember when Trump was supposed to be like in prison for the rest of his life a year ago because he supposedly mishandled and was hoarding these nuclear documents at Mar-a-Lago? Remember that? They raided Mar-a-Lago. Not a whole lot of people are talking about that anymore, but that was like less than a year ago. And now when it turns out that Biden did far more egregious things with far more egregious documents, apparently it kind of just fell out of the news cycle. And you're kind of seeing a very, I guess you would say, I wouldn't say a similar thing here, but you're seeing a similar targeting. You're seeing a similar weaponization of the justice system against political opponents for very non-consequential things. You want to talk about hush money and affairs or whatever. There was a far more egregious case against John Edwards, who was highly considered to be a front runner for the 2008 VP nomination. He got the 2004 VP nomination for John Kerry there on the Democrat side. He had an affair on his wife when his wife had cancer. It was a massive scandal that broke, and it's a very good thing it's a very good thing for Obama, I should say, not a good thing for Republicans, that he was not chosen as the VP and Obama decided to go with Biden there. But besides the point, he had a very similar case to this that was far more egregious, far more provable. It was thrown out instantly. And that's interesting when you look at it. You look at the Clinton case. They paid for the Steele dossier as the insurance policy to a Donald Trump election victory so they could undermine his presidency at every single turn. And that's exactly what they did for the first two and a half years of the presidency with the Russia nonsense time and time again. They essentially started it. They started this narrative, and then they started the investigation before Trump even made it to the White House as a campaign contribution. They were hit with a small fine. But Donald Trump, even though this has already been a case that's been raised at the federal level, it's been thrown out multiple times, even with the FEC. They're bringing it to light again because they still are trying to stop him. And then you're going to get people that go out there and say, well, no, they're actually doing this to boost Donald Trump. They're doing this it's 4D chess because they know Trump will lose he'll lose if nominated, which is not true. I mean, we could talk about the electoral strengths and benefits of somebody like Donald Trump across certain regions of the country and compare them to somebody like Ron DeSantis all we want. We've been doing that for months and months on end on these streams and on videos and on this channel. But what I will say is if that was the case, why haven't they been giving him free media coverage if they're doing this like 3D, 4D chess type of thing? Because not giving him this free media coverage has been something that's really been the number one inhibitor when they're going out there and they're propping up somebody like Ron DeSantis 24/7 for signing bills that are signed by quite a few other Republican governors. And it really doesn't make the news when somebody like Henry McMaster or Greg Gianforte signs very similar types of legislation. But when DeSantis goes out there and does it, oh, it's a big deal. And obviously part of it is because DeSantis is governor of Florida. He's very good at public relations. As Donald Trump said, he is number one in public relations. And that is very true. He's very, very good at public relations compared to other Republican governors. And I don't even see that as a bad thing, by the way, even though it may make his gubernatorial record look better than it actually is. I think being good at public relations is very good when you're talking about being on the campaign trail. I think Trump is very good at public relations. And I think Trump does know that this is something that's going to help him. But these Soros-backed DAs are obviously clearly taking the gamble here, and they're not exactly seeing it through. And they do actually want to lock Donald Trump up in prison because Donald Trump is an authentic fighter. He represents everything that the system is against, basically. He's standing up for just actual, normal, everyday Americans, talking about bringing back the American dream, securing our border. He really transformed the Republican Party, not in its entirety, but a massive wing of it to the more America first, nationalistic, populist side of things. And they hate him for that. They really do. They will always hate him for that. And they want to get rid of him very badly. So they're trying to throw the book at him. And is this exactly going to work? Probably not, because the case is so bad. Of all of the things they could have gotten him on, it's like the laundry list keeps going and it keeps getting worse. Oh, we're going to pull out the Stormy Daniels thing again. It's not going to work. Even in New York, it'd be very surprising if it actually worked. And you can look throughout the whole legal, tidbits and details about this case. But either way you look at it, it's like there's just no way. There's no way. In this article right here talks about the fact that it could be for a lot of reasons. John Edwards had a very similar and a much stronger use of campaign funds, and it was just dismissed, completely dismissed. And this is because you have a rogue district attorney who should not be allowed to be a district attorney. He should actually be locked up in a fair and just society for misusing America's criminal justice system. Trump shouldn't be in jail in New York, in prison. No, Alvin Bragg should be in prison in New York, probably for a very long time, for misusing the criminal justice system in such a serious matter and actually interfering in the election process where it doesn't exactly, where he has no business to interfere in, because it is something that is so frivolous. It is a frivolous case that he is trying to catch Trump for. And now he's been indicted for it. But either way, it's very evident that Donald Trump is not going to jail. It's very evident that he may get arrested, and this case may be drawn out for a long time in a long legal battle. But even in New York, I really failed to see this really going anywhere. And if it wasn't even in New York, this would not be a case. This would not be a case in 95% of jurisdictions. And that part is true. And we know that. But they're going to do everything they possibly can do. And this guy, he's just basically an ambulance chaser. He's going out there and he's trying to make a star of himself. Who knows what his end game is? He's trying to raise his profile among the left. But even then, it's not going to matter. Because even then, people in the middle, this is not going to turn them off. It might even gain some sympathy in the long run, because that's just the way that these things work. The people on the right are going to be energized. The people in the middle don't care about this. And if the left is going to be wasting resources going out there and attacking Trump for being under fire, and then Trump is talking about the issues, that's going to help him bring more people over to his side. Obviously, there's not a lot of swayable voters left. I know that. But if you talk about turnout, you talk about energy, you talk about building a massive ballot harvest system, which still needs to be done and still will be done. And Trump has still expressed the desire to seize the opportunity and make it happen. You know, the few undecideds in the middle that may be swayed are not going to be dissuaded by this. And if Dems make their entire campaign about, oh, Blump's in legal trouble, it's not going to move the needle in their favor. It might actually move the needle in the opposite direction. And that part we do know. But just looking into all of this, it's just very evident that Donald Trump did nothing illegal here, especially when you consider the fact that there are people who have done far more egregious things in recent history, like John Edwards, like the Clinton campaign. And I mean, the Clinton campaign got a small fine, a small slap on the wrist for it, basically. That was pretty much it. So what can I say? Trump is probably not going anywhere, but I do see this as a possible political boost to Donald Trump's presidential campaign, especially in the primary. especially in the primary, because we don't know the full effect in the general, because we could speculate all we want. There are some people that say you're out of your mind if you think this is going to help Trump in a general election. But when you look at the way that the voters that are swayable are swayed, and you look at the fact that in presidential elections, it's really all about base turnout, this doesn't really energize the left's base. This energizes the right's base. And if the left is going to waste their time and waste their energy on frivolous matters like this, it's only going to turn off any independent voters who are actually swayable. And that part is 100% true, regardless of whatever amateur analyst or person that thinks that they know more than they do is going to tell you. Now, I will say that by being indicted, Trump has all but won the nomination, if not even the general, because it's such a nonsensical charge that pretty much everybody can say that this is not a winning political strategy for the left to do. It's going to allow him to get the free media coverage in not just conservative media, but media as a whole that he has not had access to ever since he left the White House back in early 2021. So this is something that will indeed most likely backfire on whoever is trying to bring him down, especially the Republican establishment. By the way, I will say that you have Ron DeSantis. He's gearing up for a presidential bid. That's exactly what he's doing right now. Everybody knows it. And he's now hinting that he's going to run probably after the legislative session ends in about May or June. He'll probably be making his announcement. He's in the polls. He's polling right now consistently in the 20s. It's not like his campaign is really going anywhere. There's some like state polls for the primary that are paid by his campaign that has it like neck and neck. But even then, we know this nomination is Donald Trump's to lose. And something like this is going to benefit Donald Trump. But if Ron DeSantis like fully turns against him, probably not going to benefit him. And his initial reaction to the news that Trump was potentially going to be arrested or it was going to be indicted was very weak and a political miscalculation. Now he's kind of changing his tune a little bit here. And he's saying the weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It is un-American. The Soros-backed Manhattan DA has consistently bent the law to downgrade felonies and to excuse criminal misconduct, which is true. I mean, this part is true. These DAs have gone out of their way to, implement these justice system changes, justice reform, they say, that has been championed by the far left and some Republicans as well. I'm not going to excuse Trump even for the First Step Act, which Ron DeSantis also voted for, by the way. So it's not like he's going to be able to use it against Donald Trump on the campaign trail. But what he does say, he goes on to say that the Soros-backed DA has downgraded felonies, and they turn a blind eye to the rampant rising crime in New York City. But when it comes to trying to get Trump on nothing, on absolutely nothing, something that has been thrown out time and time again, something that his political opponents have done in a far greater capacity, oh no, then that's perfectly fine. That's what they're going to be wasting their resources to do, because they're trying to stop Donald Trump, because Trump is still the biggest threat to the system. Little do they know, it is likely going to end up backfiring, and Donald Trump is going to be more likely to be the Republican nominee and possibly the 47th president as well. But furthermore, DeSantis says he's now stretching the law to target a political opponent. Florida will not assist an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda. So that is a decent statement. There are issues with it I'm going to get to. But in general, it is a good thing for Ron DeSantis to not cooperate with the Manhattan DA and not to extradite Donald Trump. However, I will say that it probably would be politically beneficial to Trump if he gets arrested. I think secretly he does want to get arrested, especially for the Republican primary prospects. But either way, what I will say, it's interesting DeSantis doesn't mention Donald Trump's name in this statement. Donald Trump is somebody who went out there and he saved Ron DeSantis. He saved DeSantis's career, basically. Trump said he'd be working at McDonald's if it wasn't for me, but he did it multiple times, once in the primary by endorsing him. If he endorsed Putnam, which a lot of the electabro types actually wanted to be endorsed at the time, which is ironic because now they really want DeSantis to be president of the United States instead of Trump in 2025. But Trump saved him in the primary. Trump goes out there, saves him in the general as well, sending down his people to help DeSantis when DeSantis was, I mean, in the polls, he was trailing by like 13 points with a couple months to go. The polls obviously were skewed. We know the polls were skewed. He probably was down though, and he ended up pulling off an upset victory there. So that is a good thing. However, I will say that there are going to be people that'll say, well, Trump has been attacking DeSantis, so DeSantis should ignore him or whatever. And it's like, okay, but you're in this middle ground. Either you attack him back, which again, if he gets in the mud with Trump, it's not going to end up well for him, which is why he should just wait until 2028 if he wants to ever be president. Or B, he could take the full high road, ignore it, say Trump was a great president, say, they're attacking President Trump. He doesn't say Trump's name in this statement one time, which I find a little strange given the fact that Donald Trump was the president. And this isn't just about Soros DAs. I mean, obviously they are a problem, but it's about Donald Trump. They're trying to get Donald Trump on basically nothing so they can lock him up and throw away the key. That's what they're trying to do. This is not necessarily about, you have a rogue DA. Obviously, you have a rogue DA doing it, but this isn't about, this is a problem with this guy. No, they're trying to get Trump. That's the main issue here. I'm not saying that the other thing's not an issue, but Trump is the target, and he doesn't really mention Trump by name, and it's a little weird. And I know Trump's been attacking him lately. I get that, but still, this is the guy that saved your political career. And I'm not going to be one that says, loyalty, loyalty, loyalty. You have to have loyalty. But if we're talking about just looking like a jackass in a situation like this by not saying his name, it's not something that's beneficial. It's just a very politician-esque statement. And that type of line of delivery is not going to help him politically in a primary or a general election in the states where Ron DeSantis would need to win in order to become president come January 2025. And that is true. And of course, people are going to be talking about protests. They're going to say, well, we got to, Trump said to protest, whatever. I think it's a bad idea, given the fact that we understand that you will see feds infiltrate these things again, and they will do some dumb things, and they're going to be used to make Trump look bad. They're going to be used to make all of you and all of us look bad as well. So there's no need to go out there and engage in these like high scale protests as of right now. I think it's very important that people, if they can, don't fly to DC or fly to New York, fly to Wisconsin and help out Daniel Kelly win. So you can actually have a Supreme Court that might help Donald Trump out if Wisconsin happens to go to a recount in 2024, which is possible. I don't think it's the most likely course of action. I think it's going to be won by more than 0.1 either way, but I will say that you have to be careful. Those things do matter. Register voters. Don't do dumb stuff. Actually utilize your political acumen to something greater than that, not something that's going to get you in a lot of trouble potentially, like what we've seen before. And that much I will say. Even there were some polls on like Truth Social that showed like 85% of people said it was a dumb idea, even after Trump said to do it. So that's my take on it. If you do it, you have the right to do it, but don't do dumb things, and don't let people coerce you or encourage you into doing some very dumb things. That I will also say. So we're 23 minutes in. I think we've said a decent amount. That's very important. I think we have to continue the conversation, which does include getting into some of the super chats here. So without further ado, I think it's important that we dive into this by pulling up some of the super chats. We've been going for 24 minutes now. And this happened a couple of hours ago. I was going to go live far later than I am right now, but I felt like it was very important to move up the stream because of this news that dropped. And I've also been working on the midterm autopsy report as well, which will be out shortly, not probably until Monday. I was going to try to get it out tomorrow, but then I'm like releasing it on a Friday. I think we're going to release it on Monday. That's when documentary style videos on this channel have been released, but we are making very good progress. Made a lot of progress on it today. I'm going to be working on it all weekend as well and tomorrow, but there's other things that we have to cover. And this is a very, very big thing to cover as well. So Walker says, for my man Donald, he ain't do nothing. He did not. He did not. This is true. Nick H says, DeSimps and resist libs are indistinguishable. I think that they tend to be both insufferable on the same level. And that I will say, they use the same talking points too, or they stretch the truth here and there, and they try to talk out of both sides of their mouth, where Trump is the establishment, or Trump is too far right to win, or Trump is this, or Trump is that. It's like, what exactly is their end game? They don't have a clear, concise ideology 90% of the time. It just tends to be, oh, we're going to try to attack Trump because I believe Trump is like unelectable or something. I guess that's what they're trying to get at. But even so, when has DeSantis proven electability at the national level? When has he done that? He's very unproven. He's going to have to go up there against the national media. Trump is right when he said, what happens when they hit you with these fake allegations that could come from a woman, somebody underage, or even a man? They didn't like that, but it's 100% true, by the way. 100% true. You have absolutely no idea what could potentially happen or what could be thrown your way if you're at the presidential level, if you're at the national level. They already tried to do a lot to him back in 2018 when he didn't have that much political acumen, was not very charismatic. He let Gillum toss him around a little bit, somebody who was a self-described, democratic socialist, Bernie-aligned individual in Florida, where that politics does not play out well. And you could say it's like a Democrat year or whatever, but even so, I mean, it's a little bit deeper than that. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat year or not. I mean, you saw what happened in the Republican year of 2022, didn't you? Yeah, exactly. And Florida's been immune to midterm waves. I will say that. And you could say, well, DeSantis is more electable now because he won by like 20 points or so. And that's great that he won by 20, but who was his opposition? What was his opposition? I mean, how much did he outspend Chris by? Like $90 million? I mean, it was honestly like Mastriano Shapiro level. And the Florida Republican Party is just super competent. Rubio won by 17. I don't think anybody is exactly trying to make Marco Rubio president right now because of it, or that means that Rubio would just sweep the Rust Belt. So based Alaskans says, imagine being as narrow-minded as Rufus and not realizing this can mark the end of our constitutional republic. Well, you have people that are a part of like the diehard DeSantis crew, and they're just the new never Trumpers. They mainly exist on the internet. They don't exist in real life, by and large, these people. I'm not saying there aren't people in real life who prefer DeSantis to Trump, but like them both. These are the insufferable DeSimp crew who, I don't even know how much they even like somebody like Ron DeSantis, but they're the ones. And you have people in the donor class that think like this as well. And they're drafting DeSantis to run for president for all the wrong reasons. And it seems as if he's just going along with it. He's doing the career politician thing. His whole entire political career, he's tried to gain more political power. That's why he ran for Senate in 2016 when Rubio was bowing out. When Rubio jumped back in, he bowed out, went for governor. He got the governorship. He's very good at public relations. I wouldn't say he's very charismatic, but his public relations skills are top notch. And it seems as if now he's using it as a stepping stone to run for president, even though he's likely not going to get the nomination. And what it does is it divides the party even further, which is a massive problem. That's more of a problem than any scandal. If you have a divided party, I mean, how exactly are you going to go out there and get everybody on board by election day and win? Like, you better clear that field very quickly. And that was a problem with a lot of midterm results in places like Arizona, even like the Ohio Senate race margin. You look at the fact that not everybody was fully united behind one candidate. And what that really did is when you have a primary and then you only have a couple months before an election, it's going to be a massive issue for your party trying to win there. So I don't think it's a good idea that DeSantis steps in the race at all, really, even if he could potentially beat Biden, because what it does is it's dividing the party. Trump's already in the race. He's already marked his territory. He had the worst possible thing politically happen to him, even though it wasn't his fault with the midterms. He's still standing. He's still up there. And what's he doing? He's going out there and he's getting arrested, and it's helping him. He's back in the public eye. And I don't really think that he's exactly not going to be the nominee at this point. He might clear the field very early. But if DeSantis is getting 20-something% in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Trump is getting up close to 60, yeah, he better get out of the race by Super Tuesday or he's going to embarrass himself even further. And it would be a total disaster. Let's see. Eaters of Dead for 5. So it seems like this came out of nowhere. Did Bragg just play the entire media? Because it seems like they caught everyone off guard. I don't know. Bragg is definitely doing this to make himself more of a diva. He's definitely vying for some sort of office in the future. He thinks this is going to like help raise his profile. I don't even think it will because it's so ridiculous. It just makes him look dumb. I mean, even in New York, people didn't want to hear Trump in the election you saw. I mean, you had a candidate running for governor who had closer ties to Trump than probably most congressmen. He didn't like market himself as like full MAGA on the campaign trail because you don't do that up in New York. But still, he defended Trump on the debate stage and he voted to object to 2020. And he still came within like 6 points. And then you had like a full on like MAGA Senate candidate who lost to Chuck Schumer, who's been a traditionally electoral juggernaut type of guy up in New York. He goes out there, he loses by just 14. It was the closest race of Chuck Schumer's entire career. So, I mean, people are tired of hearing the, oh, you're Trump, especially when it doesn't even fully apply. And I don't think it's really going to work, the, oh, orange man bad type of stuff. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Eaters of Dead says, where are the Republicans? Jesse Waters called out Hawley tonight. What are you going to do? I want to see and feel something. What will Republicans do? I don't know what they exactly can do. They could talk about it, but what are they going to do? I mean, if you had a Republican governor, you could potentially fire the DA. That's what Zeldin would have done on day one. And it's a shame Zeldin didn't win up in New York, even though he performed very well. But there's not a whole lot you can do besides throw your support behind President Trump, I guess. I mean, what can they legally do? Fire, if they're governors, fire similar like DAs? I mean, there's a couple more in Florida that I don't think DeSantis has poached yet. He better get on that, honestly, if he wants to walk the walk. He already did it to one guy, and good for him there. But let's be real. Mike Luca says, silver lining. Imagine how boring being a political junkie in the 70s or 80s was. At least this is entertaining. # free Trump. I mean, I agree, especially because this is not something that's really going to hurt Trump legally or politically. I'm not exactly going to sit back here and say, oh, well, it's over. It's over for Trump. It's like the end of the world. Like, this has been par for the course for years now. What we can do is we can ride the wave and then figure out how to reverse this. And it probably is going to get worse before it gets better. Even if you have Trump in there for 4 years, he's probably not going to save this country single-handedly in those 4 years, but we can get the ball rolling. We can start making plays, moving the ball down the field, but we got a long, long way to go before we get into that end zone. And it could take decades, if not even longer than that. Jane Doe says Trump should smile in his mugshot just to troll. I'm pretty sure he would. He probably absolutely would. Trump has not lost his trolling edge, even though it does seem like he does it less because he's not in the media. He's not getting the free coverage. But it is true. Trump, you look at the old Trump tweets, they're all classics. They're certified hood classics. They're legendary. And it's like, you look at that, and how exactly could anybody be voting against this guy? Even people in the middle, there is this nostalgia for Trump. To say that there's not is just lunacy. And it might not be that pronounced, but it's there to a certain degree, one way or another. Mike Lucas is, in my opinion, is political suicide for DeSantis to assist in extradition. Not even a Trump thing. Objectively, you're literally shipping off your political opponent to prison. Poor optics for any politician. I agree. I'm not surprised he's not engaging with it, but it is what it is. Let's see. Let's go back here. Sam Madsen says the Manhattan DA only got 71% of the vote when even Hochul was getting 85. Was his opponent a Democrat or a Republican? That might play a role in that. But it is true that these weak on crime policies, even in these far left or heavily Democrat areas, I should say, are not that popular. They're not. Doug says, does Trump still have a chance of being president? Absolutely. I think it's going to be a very, very razor thin election, no matter who the nominees are on either side in 2024. That's always been the case, and it's always going to be the case. And we'll see. As long as Trump can keep up the messaging with the policy, I think it's going to be well. A really good fun time there, but we'll have to see. We have a long way to go. Now, if DeSantis just says, I'm not running for president, then I think the whole party would unite behind Donald Trump. He's not going to do that because the whole donor class is going to be doing everything they can do to find and fund an alternative against him. And it's going to hurt the party in the long run because he's going to get the nomination regardless. There's just no way, especially at this point. What are they exactly doing? They're dividing the party even more, and it's going to be detrimental to their chances. But even then, they know Trump's going to get the nomination, and they don't want him to win the general. They don't. It's not about can he. They don't want him to. It's a problem. And they'll blame him and his movement and do everything they can do to get it purged out of the Republican Party if he does end up losing in 2024. They've already tried after 2020, but if Trump goes down in 2024 after getting the nomination, Trump and Trumpism not going to be the best look after that. And they know that. So they're going to try to do everything they can do to stop him. They'll work with Biden or Brandon, or as some people will say, Joe Breezy, and they'll do everything they possibly can do to help like the weakest down ballot Republicans get funding, but that's about it. They will try to sabotage Trump, and that's why it's going to be close. But if you have a cleared field earlier, then Trump will be able to sort of get more on board, more support early on, and then get to attacking Biden and Biden's reckless policies all around, and that's going to help him. It's not like the dirt's really affecting him. All the dirt on Trump is out there. Everybody knows it. All the dirt on him's out there. That's why they're reopening old dirt, trying to trip him up so they can sort of get him out of the way in politics. It's everything they're trying to do. Jordan B says, imagine the Trump mugshot. He'll have instant street cred and certain voter blocks will have full respect. Epic move. Yeah, I did see I saw some funny tweets that were saying, oh, Trump's going to get the black vote now. And it's like, yeah, probably not. But it'll be good meme content for sure. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. So let's see any more super chats. 828. Here we go. Surfing Cowboy says Trump is too far left to win. Pro-gay, abortion, agnostic, through Jan 6ers under the bus. You could say he's good, but he's definitely not far right. Well, I didn't say that. I said people will say he's too far right to win, but those people will also say he's like too far left to win. Now, I will say that while some of these are criticisms of Trump that are legitimate, it's also important to understand that he has, on some of the issues, like, for example, the alphabet stuff, now he's talking about the curriculum type of thing that he wasn't fully talking about during his presidency. He didn't really talk about any of that stuff. He's starting to talk about it again, and that's a good thing. When it comes to abortion, I wouldn't say he's fully agnostic. He's not really that pro-life, but politically speaking, what did he do? He basically went out there, didn't touch the issue much on the campaign trail except opposing late-term abortions, and then he used the judicial power to overturn Roe v. Wade, arguably the biggest conservative victory in this country since 1991, which is a pretty big W right there. So I wouldn't exactly say that he's fully weak on the abortion issue. I think he's about right, politically speaking. And then he goes out there and he governs stronger than his rhetoric is. And he still is arguably the most pro-life president in history just because of that. Now, the 1-6ers thing, that's interesting. People were like, he didn't pardon them before he left office. Yeah, that would have been political suicide, first of all. They would have impeached him fully if he did that. But what I will say is I'm disappointed in the fact that he hasn't donated much to the legal fee fund. I will say that. That is a legitimate criticism, and it should be addressed, honestly. And he should have pressure on him to do so. Hayden Johnson says, when is the debate with Rufus? He said, I'll do it. Well, he said, I need to check my schedule, basically. I'll do the debate, but it's going to be here. It's going to be on a Twitter space. We're going to have a moderator that I approve of. And it's like, I'll do it even then. I don't care. I'll debate 2 people, 3 people, 10 people at once. I don't have any weak confidence in the notion that I could defeat Rufus and his gang of DeSimp thugs. But what I will say is he hasn't gotten back to me with a time. He hasn't gotten back to me with anything. I would love to debate him. And if we do debate him on a Twitter space, it will be reposted either here or to the second channel, because I think other people are going to need to watch the replay for sure. A Doomsday Machine Says, response to surfing guy, Trump is the reason Roe v. Wade is appealed and abortion's a state's issue again. Furthermore, when did he throw J6ers under the bus? I think I covered all of that in my response to that super chat, but thank you. Manny says, Kyle from Secular Talk says, if Trump is indicted, he'll win the primary but lose in the general. Your thoughts? I could see it being a net zero in the general. I don't really think it's going to affect anything. Like, this was already dirt that was in the public in 2020. Kind of even, I would say 2016, it might have been raised. You might have found like a few tabloidy articles about it. But I will say that I don't see it as something that's a net negative in full. I really don't. Some people are going to disagree, and that's fine. But I don't think that independents are going to be so turned off by this. Oh, the independents. It's not even about independence anymore. It's about finding voters and getting them to vote in mass. It's about utilizing ballot harvesting and early voting everywhere in the country. And the math is on our side. If we register enough voters, we need, armies of people, metaphorically speaking, going to rural Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, getting as many voters that we possibly can as possible to register that might be sympathetic. And then making sure that they turn in their ballots, making sure we utilize the laws our opponents do. I mean, you think Biden is so inspiring to black voters, but he gets like higher black turnout than Obama. Why is that? Because Democrats know how to play the game to win. And they're going to sit back here and they're going to say that Donald Trump is incapable of winning over the independents. It's like, when do Democrats even try to appeal to the suburbs? But even then, they're getting them regardless. It's not even that they're anti-Trump. They're pro-Biden for some reason. And they approve of Biden. They approve of Joe Breezy. They approve of Brandon, whatever you want to call him. And they disapprove of Trump. And in many cases, they're not going to be voting for Ron DeSantis either, even if he does 1% to 2% better with them. I mean, that's pretty much it. Man Milk says, Cori Bush is the future of the DNC. Well, I hope so, because then we would be winning a lot more. Sam Madsen says it was a Republican. Okay, interesting. Interesting. More super chats. New England Refugee says, Dallas Young Republicans Club is majority Trump, but many DeSantis eluctability types. You should come to the next meeting to change them. Hour away for a debate that could be had over the internet. I don't know. We'll see. Cameron Campbell says they're handing Trump 24 at this point. It shows they got nothing. They are super desperate. Well, they don't have anything. They're trying to trip him up in the primary, and it's not even going to work then. It's just irritating. It's annoying. And I say this as somebody who's fine with DeSantis as a governor or whatever, but Trump is still your best option at the national level to lead an America First movement. That's the way I see it. There are flaws to Donald Trump. There are absolutely flaws. And I don't think they should really be fully looked over. I also don't think Trump is single-handedly going to save this country. But he's the step in the right direction. Whereas you have the Bush people, the Ryan people, they're propping up DeSantis. And he in Congress had a mediocre record when he was at the national level. And it's like, okay, this guy might be a 2028 contender, but I don't really see him as the person that will carry the torch. When I can't even look at Trump and say, oh, he's going to save this country single-handedly, because he's not. Some people might get mad about that, but I don't care. Vercom Prasis says, I will purchase the Trump mugshot poster and proudly display it in my office. Yeah. I mean, that's how the base views these things, and it's 100% true. I'll print one out. Absolutely. It'd be pretty funny. Cameron Campbell says, video idea, update the VP tier list. I mean, do I have to update it? What exactly did I say there that I don't stand by? It's Cool Guy Rice. His thoughts on Chicago mayoral election. It's going to be interesting. I think you might see Vallis pull it off, and he's the more 90s, 80s Dem, tough on crime, comparatively speaking Dem, and then you have a far left individual who's even worse than Lightfoot. It's going to be close. I think Vallis may have the upper hand, but we'll see. We'll have to see. Sam Madsen said also they could easily convict him. Look what happened to Chauvin. I mean, the public pressure with the Chauvin case was, I think, the number one factor. I don't think you're going to see a lot of public pressure. Oh, Trump doesn't get indicted on this obvious BS charge where there were no riots beforehand trying to get Trump arrested and locked up for life. So I do think they could probably find a way to convict him. But at the same time, I don't think that they're exactly going to have the means to do so. It's just such obvious nonsense. And he could be convicted and he can govern from prison. Like, this is not a joke. Like, there have been many legal scholars that have gone on the record and they have said that Donald Trump could legally get the nomination from prison, win an election from prison, and govern from prison. Nothing will stop him. Now, that's not going to happen. It's not going to, but it could. It absolutely could. Surfing Cowboy says suburban moms are pro-Biden because they don't see the effect of their policies. Their husbands shield them so the View can tell them what to think. It's a waste. Well, you have a lot of suburban women that are very privy to media bias. This does seem to be a common thing among mainly women because they do tend to be more emotional for obvious biological reasons. And then you obviously have some men as well that are have pretty low T levels, and they kind of get lumped into the same because they also tend to be privy to emotion. And that's exactly what the media does to manipulate. And honestly, I'm sitting back here and I'm like, okay, well, maybe if we stop the whole like facts and logic brigade and we started to use emotion a little bit more, maybe then we could actually find a way to shift the narrative a little bit here and there. I'm not saying that we'd get suburban women, but we might get more like non-suburban women. I don't know. That's the way I see it. I don't think that that's out of bounds to say when you look at the big picture. But speaking about men and women and the two vice versa or whatever, we saw a horrific tragedy take place in the state of Tennessee, where you had a transgender individual who was born a woman, claimed to be a male, that opened fire on a Christian private elementary school. And we still are not even fully aware of the motive, but it's very probable given the fact that the police department has hinted that the shooter's identity may have played some sort of a role. They previously attended the school, and it's like, from what we understand, the revenge, so to speak, and that's what we're seeing in the minds of a lot of these militant alphabet individuals. And you see people like Katie Hobbs, press secretary, going out there and I'm not going to show the meme here for obvious reasons. We condemn it all for obvious reasons, but proudly support. It was a meme in support, making light of this, in support of this. A woman brandishing a firearm, and the caption said, "When we see these transphobes," or whatever. In response, they were blaming Christians. In response, they were blaming conservatives. They were blaming Republicans. They were blaming the victims for this attack actually happening. It's like, you didn't see them doing this, obviously, for obvious reasons. Nobody in their right mind is going to look at Buffalo and say, "Oh, poor whites," or whatever. Right? Exactly not. But when it comes to BLM, oh no, that's the victims. When it comes to the alphabets, oh, they're the victims too. Yeah, we know what the agenda is. Anything to advance the agenda. And keep in mind, you have an event taking place in DC on April 1st. That's like Revenge Day for the transgender community, or whatever they want to call it. And there are flyers of it. And it's being funded by Democrat politicians. In part, there are ties to them, and they're funding firearms training for these people. And they're calling it like Day of Vengeance. And it's ironic because these are the same Democrat politicians that were blaming the Second Amendment and guns for this tragedy taking place. And it's like, I wonder if there's a correlation here. You have mentally ill people, obviously, who see these things and then act on it. And you're proudly displaying it. And MTG tweeted out the flyer. She got suspended from social media. She got suspended from Twitter because of it for a day. And that's Elon Musk's Twitter. This is supposed to be the new Twitter, the better Twitter, which, again, it's been a mixed bag. And if they really are taking you out of the For You section, if you don't have a verified badge, that's a pretty low blow and kind of makes the app a little unusable, especially to people who don't pay. But it's a total mess, a total disaster. And the fact that they're sitting back there, they're blaming the victims. And now you're seeing these protesters breach the Capitals. January 6th, we call it T6 instead of 1-6. Yes, this is what you have to deal with. This is what happens when the left has the power, the institutional power. Doesn't matter if you are the victims of a terroristic attack, which allegedly it could be a terroristic attack. We're going to say alleged because we still don't know the full motive, but it's pretty clear what the motive is to people that have paid attention to the sheriff's press conferences, etc. But they're blaming guns again. And it's like, you want to ban guns, maybe ban certain ideologies that you're teaching in schools that exacerbate people that are privy to mental illnesses. Maybe target the pharmaceutical companies. A lot of these people come from broken families. I believe this is a rare exception. A lot of these people do have some sort of mental illness, and a lot of these people they're on a lot of pills, certain pills. And it doesn't usually end well when you combine those things. And you didn't have these back in the day. You had very lethal mass murder weapons supposedly on our streets in the 1970s, 1980s, 1950s, 1920s. And you did not exactly have a lot of gun control back then. Students would bring rifles to their lockers in high school, and that was commonplace, and that was normal because guns can obviously be used for good. And we know that. And kids have, back in the day at least, would routinely learn firearm safety. They'd learn how to, shoot them, learn how to hunt, etc. But nowadays, even though we have more gun control than ever that we've ever had, even a good chunk of the Republicans are signing on to it. You see more mass shootings now than ever. You didn't have mass shooting. Mass shooting was a term that wasn't coined until I believe like the late 90s, early 2000s. And you've only seen more ever since. We're less safe as a society ever since because you have a societal problem. And we could talk about the solutions. It is true, armed guards in schools may be a good solution to prevent more tragedies like this. But still, the fact that a tragedy like this would happen to the point where we're putting armed security guards and like TSA in elementary schools that are attended by 5-year-olds, I don't see that as a symptom of a healthy society whatsoever. I just really don't. It's a sick act that took place. And of course, you have people in the media, they're blaming the victims. You have politicians and people that work for the politicians like Katie Hobbs, who a lot of weak Republicans decided to vote for because, Carrie Lake's mean, whatever. Yeah, these are the people that are controlling the levers of our culture right now. So we have to take it back. That's what we have to do. It's a disaster, total disaster. But that's enough for that. We're going to get back to the indictment. I want to get to more super chats as well, because it is still not even 10 p.m. on the East Coast. Here in Texas, it's not even 9. Usually we're streaming at 11 on the East Coast. So maybe we'll go live a little bit earlier, more often. I think that might actually be a good thing, even though this is a unique situation where you have Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, kind of just in the crossfires of a justice system gone rogue. So let's see. All right, we have more super chats. I want to get to more super chats. Surfing Cowboy sent 5. Here we go. I have a water break beforehand. Suburban moms are pro-Biden because they don't see the effects. Okay, we already read that one. Okay, let's go down to the next one then. Cameron Campbell for $9.99 says, what you need to do is look at these suburban women in the eyes and say, do you know what is happening at your child's school? 100%. We have to target the mama bear. Well, the problem is a lot of them see it and they don't care. It's like, it's woke. It's normalized now because the culture has shifted. It's not so much Donald Trump is the problem. I mean, did Youngkin win because he flipped all these suburban women? I mean, that's part of it. I mean, energizing turnout among already conservative suburban women. I think the education issue, if done right, can do that. But I mean, the culture has changed so much in these areas. It's like insanity. Sam Madsen said Trump would run his campaign for president and still outperform the Michigan Senate candidate. Absolutely. Might actually help him, by the way. Everybody would be talking about it. Mike Lucas says, Chauvin, come on, dude. If a white dude was screaming, I can't breathe and die, that cop would have went down. Right or wrong, video was horrible optics. Well, the video was not good optics, but what exactly was done that was illegal is the real question. Because at a very minimum, you could say maybe manslaughter if the knee was actually the cause of death, which when you look into it, in most courts, the case could have arguably been thrown out because that technique was in the police handbook. It has now since been removed. And also it's important to note and understand the fact that he had about a 3 times lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Even the Hennepin County medical examiner said And if he was found with like a third of that, it could have been an OD if it was at home. So did the knee have an effect in speeding up the process? Who knows? But he's definitely going to go down that night regardless at some point. So to say that it was horrible optics, yeah, I agree. It was horrible optics. But if you got the full story initially and the video wasn't a viral video, then yeah, it's possible that we'd be looking at a very different political climate right now. I'm just saying. So Eaters of Dead says, make no mistake, although all these are tragic, they're nothing compared to what governments do to unarmed people. Patrick Henry said, I know of no way of judging the future by the past. Well, I mean, we'll see what happens, obviously, in terms of that, because it is true. There have been governments that have done worse to unarmed people than an incident where a few perished, because there have been incidents where millions upon millions have, but that's beside the point. Both are definitely issues and problems. Christopher Laurie says, everyone knows damn well if the setting of a shooting was a synagogue or a mosque, it would have been charged as a hate crime immediately. Christians need to wake up. We're being targeted. Yes, the number one most targeted religious group in the entire world, by the way. Nobody ever talks about it, but it is a big issue across the entire world. And all these tragic events happen. There was one on Easter a few years ago. You saw a series of bombings, and then all the politicians and media in unison, oh, they were the Easter worshipers. Remember that? They were calling them Easter worshipers. They weren't even calling them Christians. What is an Easter worshiper? I don't even know what an Easter worshiper is. You don't worship Easter. You worship God. You worship the Holy Trinity. So not entirely sure what they were getting at by there. Byron8899 says, did you see Biden issues a proclamation on Transgender Day of Visibility? He posted on his website today. Yeah, tone deaf to the max, by the way. Absolutely tone deaf. The fact that you're seeing a proclamation on that in the first place by the President of the United States is downright lunacy. And you would not have seen that, I believe, even back in the Obama administration, at least at the time. That's how far we've fallen. But it's pretty obvious that ever since you saw the Obergefell v. Hodges case take place, that it was a domino effect, an absolute domino effect that's led to this. And it's only going to get worse from here unless conservatives grow a spine on these issues, because it's common sense. Our position on this is common sense. You can't even articulate it in full without getting banned. You have to be careful with your language, and that's an issue, and that's a problem. But, you know, they're doing that in order to promote this ideology. They want to see more men on estrogen pills. They want to see more women taking testosterone, because what that does is it's more money for the industry of it. It's a big industry. They have a lot of pull. It's a part of a whole wing of big pharma. It's not talked about enough, but it's real. Let's see. MH says, could you explain what indictment means? What is the process for what is to come? Is there anything we private citizens can do to help? Prayers for 4547, hashtag Red Eagle rules. What I will say is that indictment, in terms of like a full-on dictionary.com type of definition, I'm not entirely sure what that would be. But what it does entail that I do know is that they're pressing charges. That's all it is. They're pressing charges. There'll be an arraignment, which is when he'll see what like the bail is, what the set is. I don't know. There's an arrest that may be taking place in between, but we'll see. But that's basically what indictment means. An actual full-fledged definition. I don't exactly know what they'd say, but at Gagnon says, I made a bet on the North Texas Mean Green tonight. I believe that's UNT. We'll see how that goes. Are they even playing, is it basketball, college basketball, the non-invited tournament that's still going on? Cameron Campbell says, what would you say about groups like Gays Against Groomers and D-Trans people leaving the alphabet militia and telling how horrible the mafia is? Trump is going to be the next Nelson Mandela. I don't know what that would entail, but it depends. I mean, there are groups like that have been found to have groomers within their ranks. I will say that. I don't know much about the group. The whole detransition thing, that's a whole nother debacle. Of course, there's going to be people that have gone through it and then they regret it. There's higher numbers of those people than you would imagine. And if they're speaking out against it, I don't see a problem with that. But let's see. Any other super chats? Maryland, Degatti83 says, do you think the Restrict Act Let me see, Restrict Act. Which one is that? To authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between people of the U.S. and foreign adversaries. Oh, that's the TikTok ban. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. It's 50-50. I mean, probably not, actually, just based off of who's in our government right now. IB says Virginia Republicans have lost literally every election since Youngkin. 24 doesn't look good. If Wisconsin elects the Dem, that means trouble. I mean, they're probably going to anyways, just for the record. Now, that's not to demoralize. Kelly can win, vote, organize for Daniel Kelly in Wisconsin, but I wouldn't say that it just doesn't look good. It's down to turnout. We don't have a turnout apparatus. We're slowly kind of embracing the early voting that might help Kelly to do better than Republicans did in the first round, but we need the apparatus and we need somebody who inspires turnout. That person is Donald J. Trump, by the way, at the national level. And assuming he gets that apparatus going, I can't really see him struggling a whole lot, given the current political trajectory, so long as he stays on message, which some may say that's a little bit of an if for Trump, but he's done it fairly well. You know, he just get back on Twitter and I don't know, the Truth Social stuff. I mean, some of it is what it is, but the more he focuses on 2024 and not things that are like past grievances or whatever, the better it's going to be for him. And that's true because even people that share those grievances care about current grievances as well. So that's pretty much it. Lux Libertas says, as someone who has recently rediscovered my faith and is converting to Lutheranism, it is devastating to see Christians being targeted. Well, it is. Absolutely is. But the bottom line is that what exactly is the solution to the problem? It's another question, because this is an issue. Mass shootings are an issue. They are a very big issue. They are a symptom of a sick society. We could get in the gun debate all we want and talk about how it's not guns that are the issue, or that mass shootings actually do happen at higher rates than some other Western countries, but it's never talked about. But it's a little bit deeper than that. And it is a societal issue. And we need to propose some solutions to the issue. And we could talk about the armed guards thing or more guns, and that's the Band-Aid over the gaping wound. That's basically what it is. And I'm fine with it in the time being, but there has to be some other solution. It's not guns that's the problem. It's really not. It is an absolute societal sickness issue. Let's see. Cameron Campbell says, as a Christian, does the stuff happening to Trump remind you of the scriptures? I don't know. You have people in the scripture time and time again who are accused of doing things that they didn't do, or are charged for crimes that were not just crimes to be charged for. Pretty obvious example in the second half of it. But that's not to compare the two, because they're two completely different things. But there are examples that are less notable, obviously, than that. But all right, everybody in chat is talking about the Trump VP picks, and Trump did allegedly share something on Truth about Gabbard. I don't know if that was fake or real. Somebody could probably let me know. I think Gabbard is a big gamble. I think with foreign policy, she's pretty solid. But if you're talking about energizing your own base turnout, a lot of people do still view her as somebody who was a Democrat 3 years ago, endorsed Biden in 2020, endorsed Bernie in 2016. So yeah, I'm not really like, it's not like I'd fully be opposed, because she is good for some things. And I don't think she's this awful, like, I don't know, like globalist. Some people are calling her a globalist. Like, I don't really know where they get that from. But when it comes down to it, I really think that Trump can have a better pick. And I think electorally speaking, it's a little bit of a risky gamble. It is. I don't know if he really grows the coalition a whole lot. I will say that I think she's more conservative in private than her congressional voting record would indicate, for obvious reasons. But no, I would say that I don't think she's the best pick. I'd vote for the ticket, but I wouldn't say she's the best pick. Reynolds, I think, would be a better pick. The problem is I think Trump is embracing the whole feminist type of way of thinking here. And he's saying, oh, I'm going to pick a woman now. And it's like, no, you need to pick the best person for the job is who you need to pick. So who knows? IB says Virginia Republicans have lost every election since. Oh, wait, did we already? I think we already answered that one. I just covered it. I think that's a duplicate. I don't think he'll pick MTG. I think he'll tease Carrie Lake. I don't think Lake is going to be the one selected. But I think he will tease her as the VP. He'll have her campaigning with him in Arizona and places like that. So Cameron Campbell says thoughts on Vivek Ramaswamy. He has an interesting past. I mean, the first thing he said on the campaign trail was how he wants more immigration, so long as it's like merit-based. And that'll like help save the country or whatever. And he's been a part of like the WEF stuff. He has ties to Soros or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I don't really fully trust the guy. He has some interesting proposals. I think he's like the Republican version of Yang Gang or Andrew Yang. He kind of fits the same like aesthetic, the same vibe. Oh, we're like forward thinking. We're introducing all these unique, wacky policies, some of which are actually interesting. But other than that, he's just a sideshow. He won't even finish in third place, let alone even fifth at this rate, but we'll see. Let's see. Some people are saying Ben Carson, another outsider. I don't know. There's just it's not a deep bench. And Trump has burned some bridges that would potentially make interesting VPs. Like, I wouldn't be fully opposed to a Trump Kemp ticket. Because you have somebody who's from a swing state that would be basically guaranteeing you 16 electoral votes, somebody who's a popular governor. And they're kind of weak here and there, but you're probably going to pick somebody who's weaker, just like he picked Pence in 2016. But he got the evangelicals on board because he was strong in those issues. And then if he picks Kemp, it's somebody who has like a more rugged appeal or something like that, who did well in pretty well in a Sunbelt state, which is an area that Trump typically struggles in. So wouldn't be opposed to it. Some people are going to say, I don't like the guy, and I don't think he's a great governor. I think he's mid. It's not the 2020 stuff. I think he got blamed for a lot of what Raffensperger should have gotten blamed for. Now, I will say that he's still has an immigration problem. There's more illegals in Georgia than there are in Arizona. He's incentivized a lot of business to go into Georgia, and he signed a lot of decent legislation, but part of that was because he had a primary challenge. Now, he squashed the primary challenge pretty easily, but I don't know. And the Loeffler appointment, I think, is the biggest disqualifier too, more so than anything else that he's ever done. Hayden Johnson said, who will you vote for in a Senate primary? What Senate primary? It's a very vague statement. Are you talking about Michigan? Are you talking about Arizona? Because I don't know who the candidates are. It would really just depend who's running and what the state would be, who I'd support. I do want to make a video on the ideal Senate picks. I do. But we'll see. Trump, yeah, I know. That's what I said. I said Trump hates Kemp. Obviously, he does. But in the alternative reality where he wouldn't make the worst VP because he's from a swing state and is a popular governor. So who exactly is he going to pick that fits a certain appeal region? I don't really see a pick that's really super enticing right now. Reynolds might be, but I don't know. Johnson said, whichever state you're registered. Well, I mean, probably 2024 will be obviously Cruz is going to get the Texas nomination if he runs again. I mean, there might be a challenger. Like if somebody like Gomert runs against him, I'd vote for Gomert in a primary, but I don't really see that happening as of right now, which again, I think Texas is the state that we're most likely to actually lose in the Senate in 2024, but I don't think we're going to lose it. That's how favorable the map is. And also just how Florida is a much more Republican state now than it was before. That's definitely something. But I don't know who the VP is going to be. I mean, we could debate it all we want, but I don't know. Carrie Lake is a risky double down in the base gamble, which will definitely energize the base. But I mean, like, I don't know how that would play out. She doesn't really hold any political office, even though Trump has now. So it means a little bit less than it did before. She's very rhetorically talented. She's a very good speaker. She would decimate Kamala Harris in a VP debate for obvious reasons, but I don't know. I don't think it's like the most viable selection. It can't be someone from Florida unless Trump changes his residency. I think if DeSantis didn't run and Trump changed his residency, then I think that DeSantis would have been a wise VP pick for Trump for obvious party unity reasons. So yeah, no, not Nikki Haley. Would not support Nikki Haley. She's too establishmentarian. She would turn off too much of the original base. I don't think that's a good idea. I really don't. Like, she's basically Mike Pence in drag, but not in like even a good way. I just don't see a VP there. And I don't want Mike Pence back either. That's obviously not going to happen. But given other options like Haley, there could literally be worse options out there. Youngkin would be interesting. I think Youngkin would actually not even be that bad of a VP pick. He is somebody who does have some Sunbelt appeal, but he also can put on the vest and, have some blue collar appeal as well. Keep in mind, he won because he ran up the margins in every county in rural Virginia, as well as doing a little bit better here and there in the suburbs. Christopher Laurie says, do you think Tulsi can be in a potential Trump cabinet like Secretary of State? I agree with that. Absolutely. I mean, if she wants to be like a foreign policy advisor, go for it. I mean, she's got decent foreign policy that's actually better than Trump's, and was attacking Trump from the America First side his entire presidency when it came to foreign policy. Benson X says, what about Ron Johnson? He's not likable. He's just not. I don't see him as likable. I don't really see Rand Paul as an option either. People will float his name out because he is good on a few issues. But when you talk about like crime, he's like very weak, and you need somebody who is tough on crime. So I don't know. He'd have to pick somebody who would grow the coalition somewhat, kind of, I guess, get the DeSantis people on board as well, because you do need to do that. You might say that's cucking, but it's objective math. You're going to have somebody there who is kind of the bridge. And that's what Trump did with Pence. He's going to need to do something as well. Somebody who will be loyal, somebody who won't stab him in the back fully, obviously, but he's also going to need somebody who has appeal to those people. Zeldin, it's an interesting one. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Noam, no, I don't like Noam for obvious reasons. Noam is weak on plenty of issues. Ted Cruz is not really that likable. Hawley is not going to be the pick. Hawley's going to be running for Senate. You need him in the Senate. It's definitely risky to take him out of the Senate. Keep in mind, VP is a figurehead position. You don't need somebody who's exactly going to be 100% ideal. Katie Britt would be a good option, actually. One of those people who was not the initial Trump choice in a primary, but actually, or like the America First base choice, but still has done well. Like she's definitely a part of like the Tuberville, Marshall camp for sure. And I think that she would be a fairly decent choice for VP. I actually would say that. Deuce Volts is what about Noam? We've kind of covered that. I think there's worse options. I think Stefanik's a disaster. She's definitely grifting. Reynolds would be ideal. I just don't know if she'd leave her post after she said she wouldn't leave it. But yes, Ryan, thank you. Katie Britt, yeah, we've covered that. Reynolds, I think, is a decent choice. Tim Scott, no. I mean, he's basically John Boozman who supports BLM. Like, he's not exactly. If he would be picked, it'd be viewed as an identity pick as well, because there's nothing like super special about him. But yeah, a lot of these people being raised, I don't really see the appeal. But we'll see. We'll definitely see how it goes. There will be some new voice that will rise up in the running. And VPs, are they that important? It's a bumper sticker thing. It's a debate thing. We'll see. But he's going to have to pick somebody who will get the party fully on board more likely than not, just like he did back in 2016. It's not going to be somebody that everybody's going to be crazy about, but it's got to be somebody who can get it done. I will say that. John Waffle says Blake Masters. Blake Masters didn't win political office. So that's not going to be likely to happen. It's going to be somebody that's either in Congress or it's going to be, and is notable in Congress, or it's going to be somebody who is a governor or former governor or somebody who's a senator or a former senator, one who probably didn't lose, one who probably retired, but somebody who's still active. Who knows who it's going to be? Who knows? Deuce Volt says John Gibbs. John Gibbs might be in his cabinet, but he's not going to be VP. He might be like, I don't know what secretary of something he'll be, but he'll be in his cabinet for sure. He was arguably, I think he was in Trump's cabinet in like a lower level position back in the day. So who knows? But yeah, it's just a total, as Trump would say, it's a witch hunt. The MAGA hat is still metaphorically on. It's not physically on, but it is still metaphorically on. And we will continue to support President Trump throughout, or former and future President Trump throughout his legal process, because it's total nonsense. It's just total nonsense. No case would not be a case anywhere outside of New York and San Francisco, and everybody knows it. Once again, previously rejected case. This is more of a civil matter. It's basically an NDA when we're NDA's criminal. Also, you can't prove the payments for campaign reasons. John Edwards had a more egregious case, tossed out. Clinton campaign had a way far more egregious case regarding campaign funds. That wasn't essentially tossed out, but it was a minuscule fine. So yeah, about it. So last call for super chats. We're going to get to all the super chats you guys have, and we'll do another round of those, and then we will head out because I know it's getting late for some people. I want to work a little bit more on editing this documentary as well, because I promised that I would get it out by the end of the month. It's going to be out on Monday for almost certain, unless something drastic and crazy happens. But we got to stop with the procrastination and get it done. Benson X says, what about Donald's? Byron Donalds is in Florida, and he is in Congress. I don't think he'll be plucked from Congress and will be put on the VP ticket. I just don't see it. Nick H says, Rufus is now saying Trump is guaranteed to lose Texas and will lose. Yeah, that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. These people don't know how politics works. In fact, he'll do better in Pennsylvania than DeSantis could ever do. And I don't even think he's guaranteed to carry Pennsylvania. He's basically going to have to if he wants to win. But, you know, it's still not a guarantee that he has victory. But obviously, you can look at both sides and understand the argument. These people don't understand it. Oh, Trump's going to lose. Trump's going to lose. Trump's going to lose. They don't know anything about politics. Like even the midterms, these swing states with these underfunded Trump picks were razor thin. It was like a razor thin differential between them and like incumbents. And it's like, yeah, if Trump's at the top of the ticket, like all four of the big four could have got by. Maybe not Masters because he lagged behind a little bit too much, but let's be real. Funding doesn't matter as much in presidential years, down ballot. Not saying it doesn't matter at all, but it matters less. And a lot of polling that may have overestimated Republicans will likely, I'm not going to say they're going to underestimate Trump, but they're not going to overestimate Republicans as much with Trump on the ballot because they took Trump's base into account more, which just did not show up to save the life of him in the midterms. Sam Madsen says, what does Trump need to win North Carolina by? For sure, to carry Robinson, because North Carolina likes to split their tickets in governor's races. Well, I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think it depends on the campaign he runs. You have people that are comparing this to Pennsylvania 2022 all over again because Robinson had controversies. But Robinson had controversies back in the day as well. regarding stuff in 2020, and he won by 3 points, I believe, was one of the best performing Republicans, outperformed Trump, did very well, was outspent vastly. And his political acumen is much higher. He's not like fully laser focused on past election results. He is good on election issues, though. But I don't know. He's definitely somebody who could capitalize off of party fatigue as well at that level. I think it's going to be razor thin. I think if Republicans win North Carolina by 2 or 3, I think he's probably going to win. I don't think Josh Stein is as strong as Josh Shapiro. Both are attorney generals named Josh from the respective states, obviously with the Pennsylvania comparison, but we'll have to see. Robinson has a unique political ability, and his coalition is a little unique as well, which definitely could make him a dangerous candidate for Republicans at the gubernatorial level. And all the controversy has been out in the open with Robinson for quite some time, and he's basically apologized, but not like full cucking and whatever. He's been able to get by. And he's fully unapologetic when it comes down to the indoctrination, the two agendas stuff. Like, people think that's going to hurt him. Like, how? He's speaking common sense. It's going to help him. Christopher Laurie says, what do you think of Katie Britt so far after the shit show in the Alabama primary? I think she's been okay so far. Yeah, I agree. And I don't know. I don't think she's perfect, but I think compared to how Mo Brooks turned out, it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe she was the better choice in the primary. But who knows? Jonathan Cox's thoughts on the AUKUS deal. Basically, the U.S. will give Australia and the UK, Virgin Islands, I assume, class submarines, or no, UK Virginia class submarines to counter China's military. I'm on the fence about the situation. I don't think provoking war with China is a good idea. I think China is somewhat of an adversary. They're a competitor, but to say we have to go out there and provoke World War III is not a good idea. They're pushing Russia, and Trump has said this verbatim. I think even DeSantis did when he was talking to Fox News, even though when he was talking to Piers Morgan, he did a 180, said that, if we push Russia directly into the hands of China, you're going to start World War III. And it's true. You don't want to do that. You don't necessarily have to be Russia's best friend or say that Putin's perfect on everything. But the bottom line is that they're not like the number one enemy or competitor or adversary. And it's probably better that we have a friendly relationship with Putin, with Russia, instead of instigating war. And the same thing goes for China to a lesser extent, but there are things that we need to clear up with them because they manipulate their currency. They take our jobs, and those are issues. I don't think it necessarily the end game to solve that is to enter World War III, a war we're possibly going to lose. So Nick H says, should Trump even bother contesting Michigan? Yeah, I think he should, but I think he has to laser focus on Wisconsin and Pennsylvania first. I mean, those two. And then obviously he's going to have to get Nevada. Don't worry about Florida. Maybe one rally there in the general at most. Get your people on the ground involved. North Carolina, similar thing. Get the people on the ground involved. Push early voting there. You should be fine. You need to do Nevada, Barnstorm, Nevada, Barnstorm, Wisconsin, Barnstorm, Pennsylvania. That's what you need to do. Don't spend time in Iowa. Don't spend time in Ohio. I mean, get your people on the ground there. Maybe make a stop here and there on the way, but you don't need to have full-fledged rallies in late October in, Delaware County, Ohio. It's just not worth it. It's just not. Maybe then if you're doing well in PA, then you go after Michigan. But even then, rally location, it needs to be strategic. Northeastern Pennsylvania was ignored by Trump a lot in 2020, and that's Biden's hometown. And there's a lot of ammo you could use against Brandon up in Brandon's hometown. And you need to go back out there, and then you could, sway more voters over to your side, get higher turnout in a place like Scranton, do a little bit better, and Luzerne as well, which Republicans bombed in the midterms there. So yeah, you're gonna have to strategically place these rallies and just keep doing them and do events. And if you're going to Georgia, the one trip Trump did to Georgia was like a private event where he talked about like black agenda, whatever, like, oh, he's gonna do the Platinum Plan, or he's gonna have more criminal justice reform, which is basically leftist crime policy. And he's done less pandering, which is good. But if you're going to go to Georgia, you got to go to the Atlanta suburbs, maybe the exurbs, and hold rallies there. Don't just avoid Atlanta. He didn't stop at Atlanta at all. And what was the end difference? What, 10,000? And we could talk about why that is, but you have to look in the mirror sometimes and understand that, no self-inflicted wounds. If you minimize the self-inflicted wounds, your output is going to be greater regardless of anything else. And that I will say, same thing goes for Arizona. Last rally could be in the suburbs of Phoenix. Do what you got to do. Get your ground game out there. Get your early vote turnout operation, ballot harvest crew. Do what you got to do for Trump. And then you're going to win. You're going to get close to probably 100 million votes nationwide if everything goes right at the rate the turnout is going. And that's what it comes down to. You don't have to worry about places being overcrowded on election day. And if it's too overcrowded, more people are going to say, oh, whatever, I'll just stay home. And then what happens then? You lose. So don't lose. Get out and vote and utilize the electoral system to our advantage the way the left does. It's true. So, all right, guys, it's been a great stream. We've gone for almost an hour and a half. We had some very insightful super chats. We had some very interesting commentary from the live chat as well. And we talked a great deal about this raid, not the raid, but the arrest. The raid was last year and didn't amount to anything. So that's the way it is. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like the stream before you go, sub before you go, hit the bell before you go. I'll see you guys in a video tomorrow. I'll do a stream next week sometime as well. Red Eagle out.